Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us on Newsmakers. Well, Newsmakers often focuses on local government and services, and today we're focusing on Joplin, the Joplin Police Department. Joining me, Assistant Chief Matt Stewart. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Judy.
Joplin Police Department, we've always heard, you have a population of 50,000, but you serve a much larger area when people come to town in the community.
That is correct. Yeah, the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce says that our population swells to about 240,000 during the weekday. So even though we have a 50,000 residential population, our population does swell during the day.
And I know that there have been efforts over the last few years for the police department to grow in kind, that you've been able to add additional officers.
Yes, in 2006, the citizens passed a public safety sales tax where we added an additional 29 police officers to our department. And so it's been very beneficial to be able to try to keep up with that population growth.
Right. Now, your role as Assistant Police Chief,
that is
fairly
correct.
New position since the first of the year.
Yes.
So someone were asked, how do you describe your role as Assistant Police Chief?
Well, basically my duties are oversee the day-to-day operations of the police department. We've got 4 different bureaus within the department, and each of those bureaus is ran by a captain. And so they kind of deal specifically with their area, and then my job is just to kind of help assist them and help them to help do their job.
Right. Well, today on the program, hopefully we'll hear about some of the jobs people are doing and some of those different areas that we're representing. I'd like to start off with following up things that we've heard about in the news. I know within the last month or so, City Council talked about a new system that you have called Mental Health Court. And people may have seen the story, but they want to find out some more details. Sure.
Well, it is a new program for us. The Mental Health Court has been something that's going on across the nation and is becoming more popular across the nation. Basically, we were awarded a grant for $250,000 back in October of 2014. And what that grant was to do was help fund a mental health court. Now, the goal of that mental health court is to identify those subjects that routinely come through our jail system that we deal with on the streets that actually have some mental health problems and are not necessarily just hardened criminals. And the goal with that is to try to get them the mental health treatment that they need so they don't continue to go through the criminal justice system.
So you're working closely with mental health facilities, organizations in town that serve that population?
Absolutely, yes. In order to get this grant, we had to partner with one of our local mental health providers, and we partnered with the Ozark Center, and they've been very beneficial in helping us obtain this grant and help us get this program going.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about how it would work then. I mean, obviously, first, I guess you have to have some sort of identification to get people into the program.
Yeah, the way it starts is really pretty basic. Whenever somebody's arrested on a city charge, they can be identified either by the arresting officer or a correctional officer in our jail. And basically how it works is, based off of their behaviors that they're giving at the time of being taken into custody, or just off of our previous knowledge of knowing who they are because we've dealt with them many times and maybe know that they do have some mental health issues.
So you may have some repeat offenders that you've seen numerous times.
Exactly, and really that's the goal, is to, we have these people that offend repeatedly, and to try to get them some mental health treatment as opposed to incarcerating them in jail and then having them released and reoffend again.
Okay. So it's a treatment-based program then. Once they are identified, then you have that path that instead of going to the jail, they have other facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal is whenever they're initially identified is then they're formally screened through our mental health provider, which is the Ozark Center. And the goal with that is to actually determine what kind of mental health problem they have. And so we can formulate a program for them to enter to address that mental health need. And basically what it works is when they come in with charges, the city prosecutor will meet with them along with the public defender. And if the offender chooses to enter this program, then they'll defer those criminal charges for anywhere from 3 months up to 12 months while they're in the program. And our goal again is to try to help them complete this program, and if they do, then their charges can be dismissed.
So it's a voluntary program. You have to have the cooperation of the person.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we can't make somebody
enter
this program. However, if they do choose to do that, it's very beneficial to not only them but to the community as well, because they are getting the treatment that they need.
And you say this program is being used elsewhere. So are there model programs where you can follow, the patterns that others have set around the country? Yeah,
that is very beneficial. It's not a brand new program. It's brand new for us, but not for others. In fact, Jasper County's been using a mental health court program for some time now, and so we've got somebody here local that we can go to and ask any questions that we have.
Great. All right. And what about the time someone's actually in the program? Once they're identified, you mentioned there's a time period in which they're, I guess, treated or followed through with care.
The typical time that somebody's in the program, like I said, is anywhere between 3 and 12 months. The max being the 12 months, and usually at minimum of 3 months.
What about the ages involved? Adults only?
Yeah, this would be for adults only. Those that are 17 or older would be eligible for the program. And really the program helps them with a lot of things, and it helps them with getting them on the correct medication, getting them seeing maybe a psychiatric person to help them work through their problems.
Okay, so there's a lot of different avenues that you can take, and I guess the ultimate goal then is to keep them from coming back into your system.
Yeah, exactly, because we've learned over the years that they're not necessarily a criminal. They just have some mental health issues that need to be treated, and they may not have the funds or the support they need to get that treatment. And so our goal is to help provide some of those funds and provide some of that support so they can get the treatment and then not reoffend and be in our system.
So that's how the grant funds are being used to help provide these services, the costs of operating those
Yeah,
services.
basically the costs are to first of all pay for any medication that's needed. If there are any treatment sessions where they go spend some time with somebody, it'll pay for those. And we can even use some of the grant funding to help pay the first and last month's rent on a house. So if they're having trouble getting into housing, we can use that grant funds to pay for that as well.
Right. So a lot of things, a lot of possibilities.
Yes.
It's only been in place a short time. Have you already had some experiences to be able to start utilizing the service?
Yeah, we've like I said, we just received the grant in October. So there were several things that we need to do to really get the program in place.
Right.
Some of those things we've visited with Kansas City Police Department. They have a mental health program there, and kind of saw how they've done things. We've had several meetings with our municipal judge, the prosecutor, Ozark Center, and with our police department as well to try to determine the best way to handle this. And then on April 1st, we had our first mental health court, and we had 2 people go through that court.
Okay, so it is underway. People
Yes.
are utilizing the services.
Absolutely.
And tying that together. So looking at new innovative ways to deal with the community. That's one of the aspects of the police department, trying to adapt.
Yeah, exactly. And again, our goal is, there are certain people that need to be in jail and need to be punished for the crimes they've committed. We also know that there's a group of people who, again, aren't hardened criminals. They just have some mental issues, and our goal is to try to help them become more productive citizens.
Okay. And we're dealing, of course, with the Joplin Police Department municipal violations. County has something on the county level.
Correct, yes. If somebody comes in with some kind of felony that's violent or something, then they wouldn't be eligible for our program. They might be eligible for the county's program. Ours will only deal with local municipal charges.
Okay, great. Well, we hear a lot about changes in adapting, technology playing a big role, and the police department seems to be always one of those areas where people talk about the technology. What are you doing to not only communicate with citizens but utilize technology in your job?
There's really a lot of different ways. Technology is changing every day in the police department, and that's one of our challenges, is trying to keep up with technology. As many know, in government, we always seem to be lagging a little bit behind from what the private sector is doing. But we're trying to keep up with that.
Right.
One of the things we've done now for about 3 years, we've had a Facebook page, and that's been very beneficial to us. It helps us interact better with our citizens. They can send us information and ask questions that maybe they couldn't get answered otherwise, and we're just able to communicate with them via Facebook.
Facebook is an example of social media really being a timely social media, where you can send a message out today and not have to go through somebody designing a website and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great thing about it. We can customize it to however we want it to be. We saw a great success with it just recently when we had a missing juvenile that went missing from a park in town. It was late at night. We were able to get that information out to our public. It was seen by over 80,000 people, so it was being seen by not only Joplin residents, but everywhere in our region. And we were able to get some information to where that juvenile might be, and the biggest thing was we were able to determine that this juvenile had not been abducted, that he was okay, just didn't want to be at home. So that was our biggest concern, is that we just didn't know where he was, and our biggest concern was that he'd been possibly abducted. But by getting that information, we were able to verify that that wasn't the case, that it was more of a runaway, and we were able to locate that child the next day.
Right. And I think we have the Facebook page on the computer. I don't know if they can call that up for us to see, but it's just Joplin Police Department for people who want to look that up.
Yeah, you just go to facebook.com/JoplinPD, and that's where you can find our Facebook page. You can go there and like that. We'll put events that are on there whenever we're testing for a police officer position. We put that information on there, and you can just find a lot of information on there to help them.
Right, and I know with the springtime storms, I recall one of the first round of storms, you were kind of forewarning citizens even that we look out tonight, we might have some storms.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the big things right now is you try to get that information out to the public so they can prepare and be aware. And they can also go to Twitter, and we do have a Twitter handle, and they can follow us on Twitter as well.
Okay. Of course, spring, as we're recording this program, is the storm season, I guess, and you work very closely with Civil Defense and the others, when those storms do come up throughout the region.
Yeah, we do. We have a great working relationship with our Emergency Management Director, Keith Stammer. He actually works in our building just down the hall from where I am. So during this time of year, we visit quite a bit about the impending storms and stuff, but he's good to get that information to us, and we can share it with everybody else.
Great. Well, I know one aspect, and I'm looking up information about the police department, we hear about special investigations.
Yes.
And I'm looking at some of the things that you're doing. What's going on behind the scenes? Obviously, you have people on the street who are watching this community, but there's investigation, a lot happening behind the scenes for the city.
There is a lot going on with that. Back in 2010, we implemented a program called IMPACT, which stands for Improving Methods Proactively Against Crime Trends. And the premise behind that was to determine where crime is occurring, what time of day, what day of week it's occurring, and then allocating police resources to that specific area. Okay. We've been very successful in that since the implementation of that IMPACT program. We've seen a 12% decrease in crime where we've focused our efforts. And we do that not only just with putting officers in uniform, but we allow our officers to come in dressed like normal in regular clothes, and they can saturate that area and try to look for criminal activity.
So you're able to target known problem areas, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You have that history. You look at the history of what's happened in that community.
Yeah, exactly. One of the benefits we had from the public safety sales tax was to add a crime analysis position. And so we have a civilian employee, and she basically crunches numbers for us and is able to put that in usable data. And so we can then get that out to our patrol officers on the street as well as our investigators, and that way they can better focus their efforts.
Well, now, speaking of crunching data, we have a graph that you had sent earlier. We can show the viewers that dealing with vehicle thefts, and that's an example, I guess, of just trends when you look at that. How are we doing in terms of that?
Yeah, exactly. One of the things we're trying to build upon the IMPACT model with is called intelligence-led policing, and that's just taking a little bit more focused look at our crime trends, and not only what crime is occurring and where it is occurring, but who is committing those crimes. And over the previous couple months, we implemented this with IMPACT, and we were able to determine who our major vehicle theft suspects were, where they're living, where they're hanging out, who they're hanging out with, and then we could focus our efforts on who's committing those crimes. And as you can see by the graph, the results, we usually average between 25 to 30 vehicle thefts a month. And in March, we saw 7 vehicle thefts. So that was a huge reduction, and it really showcases how well this program works.
So you were able to identify those people who were causing the problem, basically, in layman's terms, and got them from causing that problem.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal is they're not only committing vehicle thefts, but they're also doing burglaries, theft from vehicles. They're also committing other crimes. And so it not only benefits what our target crime is, but it's going to affect others as well.
And you find a lot of those crimes are tied together. When you talk about in terms of crime statistics, that one area goes up, it also ties to another area.
Sure. And we know a lot of our crime goes back to drugs and narcotics. We know a lot of our narcotics users are stealing cars or stealing items so they can support their drug habit. So whenever we can get those offenders off the street for stealing a car or doing something else, we're also helping with the drug issue as well.
Well, you have a website as well that provides a lot of information. I know prior to the program I took a look at it, and if we have that on the screen, we can show people that, you can click on here and you find a lot of sources of information, information reports. As you've mentioned, if we want to know the 2014 crime statistics, we can look at this website.
Yeah, there is a lot of information available on there. There's an interactive map that's on there where you can go and actually see where crime's occurring in your neighborhood if you like, and get some individual information about that. We also have the ability where you can file a police report from our website, and that's something we started last year. And the benefit for that is, like you said, where our population increases to 240,000, there's times of the day where an officer may not be available to come take a past tense
to sit there and write a report out on a piece of paper.
Exactly. And our citizens, they have busy lives just as well as everybody, and their time is valuable. And so the benefit to this is they're not having to wait for a police officer to contact them. They can just go in there when it's convenient for them, from the comfort of their home, file that police report. they'll get a copy of that report that they can print off, and it's something that they need to hand to their insurance company or anything like that. They've got a copy of that report there.
What are examples of the type of reports you can file online, and I mean, versus calling an officer? You know, how does someone decide when do I call, when do I file?
Most of the crimes that you can report are what we consider property crimes, and things that have happened, you know, maybe the day before or something like that. We ask that if a crime's occurring right now, you know, you look across the street and you see somebody breaking into your neighbor's house, go ahead and call us. Go ahead and call us on that one, and we'll send somebody right out there. But you know, if you notice that somebody broke into your vehicle and there's something missing from there, or you know, somebody took something from your shed out back, something along those lines, those are what we're looking for those types of reports. It include like phone harassment, stuff like that. They can enter in all the information that's in there, type a little narrative, and then that all goes into our system, and an officer can follow up with it.
Okay, and that's the next step. Then it goes into your system. Someone will then follow up with that person who's filed that report.
Yes, that is correct.
Following through on that. You mentioned identity theft. We hear so much about that today, and that's probably people don't know where to go if that happens. You know, do they call the police department? Do they file? Is it important to file a report to get that on record?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing to do is to file a police report with us, and then once you've made that call and you're waiting on that officer to respond, the next thing to do is start calling all your credit card companies, let them know that somebody's stolen your identity. That way they can put an alert on your account. And that way if they see any suspicious activity on there, they can alert you about that. And then the next biggest thing is to call the credit companies like Equifax and TransUnion, and you can put an alert on your Social Security number as well. So that way if they see any kind of activity, somebody trying to open a credit card, they will contact you and ask, hey, are you the one trying to do this? And then if it's you, it goes through. But if it's not you, then you're alerted and it's stopped before somebody's able to steal your identity.
So this is like step one of a major international problem, I guess. You know, we hear about people overseas coming to the Americans' records and getting them.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing for law enforcement is, you know, if somebody's identity is stolen here in Joplin, well, it may have taken place in another state is the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, it's in another country. And you know, we're kind of limited on what we can do when it's from another country because other countries don't play by our rules. And so it can be difficult to do that investigation. And you know, with increased use of the internet, people just need to make sure they're being very safe when they're on the internet. Understand that banks don't call wanting their Social Security number, wanting their account information. That's not how banks work. Whenever you know they get that email saying they want all this money and they just you know need to send $200 for processing, that's not a good thing. And so basically a good rule of thumb is if you didn't enter a contest or didn't request information, if you get asked for that information, you shouldn't give it.
Well, I know we hear about, you know, agencies with cybercrime units. Do you have somebody in the Joplin Police Department who's a specialist or looks at that cybercrime type of situation? Yeah,
we have 2 officers that are attached to our cybercrimes task force, and we host that task force, and it's made up of about 4 or 5 different agencies that work out of our building. Now, their main goal is identifying child pornography that people are sharing over the internet and sharing those images, and that's their primary focus. And they've been very successful in putting what we really would consider a bad person in jail that's sharing images of kids that are being abused. And so that's their primary function. Then we have other investigators that actually work on internet crimes such as identity theft.
Now you mentioned task force, and we often hear about the regional police departments working together if there is a major crime, for instance. So you're a very active part of those types of task force when things happen.
Yeah, the days of individual police departments doing everything on their own are kind of gone. You know, criminals don't understand jurisdictional boundaries.
City limit doesn't mean a difference.
City limit doesn't mean a thing to them. State lines don't mean anything to them. And so we've made a concerted effort to broaden beyond the city limits of Joplin and to work with other agencies, you know, working with the Sheriff's Department, the Highway Patrol, other municipalities within our area to, first of all, just share information with them, because a lot of times we're looking at the same people that they're looking at. And again, to bring these task forces together so we can combine our resources. And our task force has state partnerships as well as federal partnerships on there. So like with talking about child pornography, that crosses state lines all the time. And so it's nice when we have that federal partnership because they can go across those state lines and they can continue that investigation.
So a lot of cooperative ventures by the police and working together throughout the community. Looking at the city of Joplin and your challenges that you have, people might ask, well, what can I do to protect my property? Just some basics, you know. I mean, we have obviously increased or decreased rate of auto thefts, but what else can people do? What are some common tips that you'd like to share with citizens?
Sure. Some of the basic things that they can do are at nighttime, make sure you turn your outside lights on at your residence. As part of that public safety sales tax, we were able to put in extra street lighting in some areas that didn't have street lighting. And what we saw was a crime decrease in those areas. So it's proven that additional lighting will decrease crime. One of the big things is when you going to see a movie, going to the mall, to go shopping, lock your vehicle, take your keys with you, and hide your valuables.
Putting that bag in the back seat is an invitation for somebody to take it.
Exactly. We've seen many times where thieves will come and all they're doing is looking for unlocked vehicles.
Walk through a parking lot trying doors.
Exactly. Trying doors because they don't want to make a sound and draw attention to themselves, so they're looking for those easy targets. And then if they're not finding an unlocked car, they may see the GPS or an iPad or the purse sitting there on the front seat. Well, they know they're going to get something from that, so it's worth their risk to try to make some noise. If all that stuff's hidden and they don't know what they're going to get, they'll just move on to the next one. So the biggest thing is to try to harden your target and just not make yourself a target for crime.
So common sense prevention on the personal aspect.
Yes.
How about citizen communication with the police department? Do you encourage, like you say, people to look across the street, watch what their neighbors? Do you still have neighborhood watch programs?
We do still have neighborhood watch programs, and those are very beneficial. It's always important. We tell people if they're going to go on an extended vacation, there's a couple things they can do. One is they can put their house on a house checklist. We have a civilian group called our Sentinels, and they get a list of those that are gone on vacation, and they will actually go by and check on their house for them, make sure it's still secured, nobody's broken in, and just kind of keep an eye on things for them while they're gone. Second thing they can do is get with neighbors they trust, neighbors that they know, and let them know that, you know, I'm going to be gone. Can you keep an eye on my property? Make sure nobody's around it. Get with the post office, make sure they're holding their mail, because a lot of times criminals will look for mail to start piling up at a house.
Papers on the driveway.
Yep, they know somebody's gone, and so this is a good house to hit. So, you know, again, there's just a few little steps people can take to try to help themselves from being a victim of a crime.
So if someone lives in a part of town and they're not sure if they have a neighborhood watch program, they can call and you would let them know what the procedures would be.
Yes, they can call our police department, our South Station, which is 627-8880, and they can talk about getting a neighborhood watch program started.
And I know you've always had a program to get the citizens involved through a Citizens Police Academy. Still have that going on with the city as well?
We do still have that going on. In fact, there's one going on right now. That's probably one of the best things that we've done with our community as far as getting the community involved with our police department, to be able to show them how we do things and why we do things. And then we also always learn something from the citizens that come there.
So it's sharing in both directions. Right? Exactly,
because they'll provide a perspective that we haven't seen yet, because we can get a little focused looking at things through police eyes. So it's always nice when a citizen can look at what we're doing and they can offer a suggestion on how we can maybe do things better.
Right. And you continue to work with the schools as well. I know you have resource officers in the schools, but you also have outreach programs for the schools.
Yeah, we have 4 school resource officers that are in our schools, and one of the great things about that is they developed a program to teach our youth about the dangers of drugs, the importance of making good choices, the importance of having good friends, and how the choices that they make, you know, even at the junior high, elementary level, can affect what they want to do later on down the road.
So that young thought, you know, affecting them when they're young to think about the future.
Yes, exactly. And another thing they really harp on is internet safety, because kids can be taken advantage of so easily on the internet. We all know our kids are believing. They think everybody's being truthful with them.
Right, they don't know there are bad people out there sometimes.
Exactly, they haven't figured that out yet. And so we try to stress the importance of, just because somebody's telling you something on the internet does not mean it's true, to make sure mom and dad know what you're doing on the internet, and then letting the parents know that they need to be involved in what their kids are doing.
Right. It's that child who sits in the room unattended and nobody knows what they're doing that could lead to those problems that you hear a lot about and so forth. Well, I know in your position you get a chance to go out into the community and meet a lot of the citizens and representing the police department. What do you enjoy the most when you do that?
You know, the best thing about it is just getting to talk with citizens, hearing the good interactions that they've had with our officers. And probably the most important thing for the police department is, like I said earlier, with the Citizens Police Academy, just being able to see things a little bit different through the citizens' eyes. They can, offer a suggestion on how we might do something better, how we might communicate with them better, and just learning from them how we can do a better job.
Now, if somebody has a good experience with an officer, maybe assistants, or they have a way to communicate that with you through the website? Or?
Yeah, they can do that through our Facebook page, just sending a private message to our police department telling us about their good experience, or even if they have a bad experience.
You want to hear those as
we
well.
want to hear those as well, because a lot of times what we find when they have a poor experience with us is they just don't know everything that went on there. And once we're able to explain that, then they better understand, why whatever happened.
Right.
But unfortunately, there are those times because we employ humans as our police officers. So there's times we're going to make a mistake and we may do something wrong. And so we want to be able to know about those so we can address it early and get it fixed before it becomes a bigger problem.
And of course, on the other hand, if somebody has that good experience, somebody's assisting them, kind of that pat on the back is probably rewarding to your officers as well.
It's great for officers to hear whenever somebody was pleased with the service that they got. We are very customer service oriented at the police department. Want to make sure they have a good experience with us, even though they may get a ticket, from a car stop or something. We at least want their experience with us to be a good experience. And so it's great to be able to pass that along to our officers. Let them know, hey, you're doing a good job. People notice when you do a good job, and they appreciate the good job you do.
Right. And what goals would you like to have for the future of the police department, looking at these different programs, things you have in place?
Well, one of my goals is that we give 100% every day. And whatever that 100% is, because everybody's is a little bit different, but they give 100% every day, and that we're always moving forward and progressing. Like we talked about earlier with technology changes, there are always changes that are going on. So we need to be cognizant of those changes, embrace those changes where we can, and then to always move forward to move our department forward.
Great. And as the city continues to develop, the police department will develop as well.
Yes, exactly. I think we're very fortunate to have a great city. Our city council supports our police department, and we've just got a great group of officers that work for our police department, and they want to do good things. They got a lot of good programs going on, and it's just a great time to be working here at the police department.
All right. And of course, if people want to find out more, like I said, you have a wealth of information through your website, or they can probably just pick up the phone and call and talk to you.
Yeah, either way, whatever's best for them, they can go to our website and check out that information. They can be watching for testing dates. We'll be testing here in about a couple months for the position of police officer. So they can get a lot of information from our website, or they can, like you said, just give us a call, and we'd love to talk to them. Great.
Well, Matt, I'd like to thank you very much for being on the program and sharing information with our viewers today.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and a great opportunity to kind of share some information about our police department.
You're welcome. And thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.